What's going on, y'all? It's Jason Reviews here, back at it again with another video. Just got back in the last hour, man. Just got back home from Houston, from SM13. Did get to be in the building for it, man. Shout out to everybody, you know what I'm saying? I got to link up with out there, especially shout out Frontline. Always make it a great time out there. Love them boys, man. But just got back, right? Solid event, I think, Summer Madness, always an important event. And for the last few years, I have felt like they've kind of stuck around that like 7 out of 10 range. And I don't feel like this one was too far out of that. As per usual, and as you guys can see in the title, we are doing the top 3 most disappointing and the top 3 most impressive performers. Got to highlight the best of the night. We are going to go over all battles. So before I actually hop into either list, I'm going to talk about the battles where you're probably not going to see someone from either side on the list. And then, throughout however we cover it, what I'm saying, I will be covering all the battles here and all the battlers' performances. 7 battles, which in the building feels like an eternity. I actually thought the event ran pretty on time, though, for the most part. I mean, it went from like 4:30. I think we got out there like 10:30. I don't know, for the live viewer, it'll start like 2 hours ahead of time. And we know how it goes, what I'm saying, with battle rap events, man. But I thought it was solid, and then obviously in the building, I probably have a little bit more of a favorable view on it. Got to view only a couple of the battles back. I haven't been able to watch all the card back. A couple of battles I'm probably not going to watch back, which we will talk about. But without further ado, what I'm saying, first going to talk about some of the in-between stuff, some of the battlers that I didn't think were necessarily crazy impactful, what I'm saying, in a negative or positive direction. And then we'll get into the top 3 most disappointing and finish off with top 3 most impressive and who I think the performer of the night was. So in terms of the battles I want to talk about, funny enough, is actually the main event and co-main event, what I'm saying? I thought we're talking about Rockin' Av and Twork versus Hollow. And really, I'll start out with Twork versus Hollow first. And this is one where a lot of people favor Twork heavy, and I think I psyched myself out a little bit. Traditionally, someone who is picked against Hollow has had Hollow personally losing a lot of battles recently. I think I got a little, this ability of his to pull out, squeak out some ugly wins, some battles that aren't the greatest, but it's like a decent little battle, and he's able to get kind of a rougher version of his opponent without really like causing too much, like beating himself, without choking, without looking too crazy, aside from the DNA battle, really, for the most part, you're at the very least going to get it like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 Hollow, and if you overthink it, 3 tends to get the W, and I thought going later in the night, a couple things like that would play in his favor. He could pull off an underdog win here, and then watching it in real time, all I have to say, man, is how complete is New Jersey Twork at this point in his career, not just in terms of keeping wrapping all 3 rounds. That's the big thing. People are worried about Twork choking. It's been about 10 battles now, since I think even his last hard stumble. But people, as they should, you have a career with 20, 30 plus chokes, right? It's something that you do have to worry about. But beyond that, I think the completion in his style, in terms of just the way he attacks the game now, he's always going to be able to drop bombs. He's always going to be able to haymaker fish, but at an elite level, consistently chase the haymaker and land many per round. But I think it's all the in-between stuff, angle punching, a little bit of comedy, more tailored than he's ever been, jabs, kind of working angles without the need for a big haymaker, a little bit more of a talk-to-you bag. I just think that he's attacking you while still dropping haymakers. He's also giving the in-between stuff, the little layered writing stuff that doesn't land crazy, but it's fun for the pen heads. He angles for those that really prefer tailored and direct attacks in battle rap. And for the 4 or 5 different fan viewpoints of battle rap, like traditional ones that you'll see, he kind of made it work for all that. And on top of that, this really wasn't even the best New Jersey Twork. Now, he was not bad by any means, but I think this was an 8 out of 10, maybe a 9 out of 10 Twork. Personally, though, I'd say he's about an 8 out of 10, which is still good. And he used that to clear Hollow. I had him winning the first and the third, very, very clear. I think the second is close, and I think that's kind of the dip that I'm talking about, where really not the craziest Twork round. I personally edged it to him, though. But when he gets in the third, breaking down, and it's not the worst, it's decent. It's about what you're going to get from Hollow in the last few battles, you know what I'm saying? It's not the craziest thing. I thought his third, the angle he took on Twork with the reading the charges was kind of funny. I thought in his second round, the dyslexic, the rebuttals in his the top of his second is kind of what got that momentum back on his side. But Twork doing the Black Panther, you know what I'm saying, concept in the third. The first, he really just beat Hollow how you'd think he would, just punched his head off repeatedly for multiple minutes, you know what I'm saying? And then in the second round, like I said, debatable, but edge Twork. So I had Twork 30. Not the crazy, I saw some people didn't like it. I have not been able to watch that one on camera. I like Twork's performance, thought Hollow was decent, thought overall, just a decent battle for the most part. And you know, solid co-main event just goes to show, you know, what we are seeing a complete version of Twork now, what he should have been years ago, but what he is now. And what he is now is someone that doesn't need to be 100% to clear a God tier, you know what I'm saying, like Hollow did on. And I also would like to mention Rock versus Av, main event of the night. The one that I really, really want to watch back, because I feel like the first 2 rounds were very close. I've seen a lot of people that watched it on camera saying otherwise. I liked Rock's first a lot. Here's the way I called it. I had Rock clearly winning the second round. I had Av clearly winning the third round. And I think the battle really comes down to the first round. Now, a couple things to take into account is, one, they went personal. If everyone was scared it was going to be a bar fest, they pretty much talked really in a disrespectful manner. I think Rock had the bar, you're a failure, like your kidneys, you know what I'm saying? So crazy. It's crazy because they're obviously cool, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the battle, they dapped. Everybody's seen the lead up that they had, that they said they were too friendly, but when they got in the ring, it was clearly gloves off. I mean, Av really worked the angle, the almost fight angle, and the breakup from Cave all 3 rounds. You got a pretty tailored personal Av. On top of that, Av rapped long as fuck. And I don't really blame Av for rapping long as fuck. This is the main event. SM main event. How long it's taken Av to get it, how it feels like difficult it was for Av to get it. So unless somebody is going to literally like stop you from rapping physically, why would you not take advantage of the moment? You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's helped a lot in the optics. You know, if you drown a guy out, you have twice as much material. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people are going to judge off of that. I do feel like particularly in the second he kind of rapped himself out of the round, I really like what he was doing, but there was a lot of great, and there would be a little bit of dry spots, and then a lot of great, and then a little bit of dry spots, as opposed to Rock, who had shorter, which is funny because last time we were in Houston, Rock versus T-Top, he did something very similar to T-Top. He's gonna win either way, but he like rapped for like 8-9 minutes per round. But I thought he was really efficient with his time. I think when you get to the third, there's the fall off. He tries to get into his, you know what I'm saying, the flow pockets, the AMG mode, that has become so synonymous with his style, the chain punching. I feel like it was one of the worser versions. That's not even a word. But it is one of the worst versions I've seen of him getting into that bag. Didn't land too crazy by the third. And Av really just won Av's third isn't even his craziest round, you know what I'm saying? But Av won that third clear. And like I said, first 2 rounds, I think Rock's more efficient and possibly is the higher peak. So he is probably the biggest haymakers of both rounds. The Rock, the concrete on Av, that means Rock made you. A couple ones like that, you know what I'm saying, that were just, they hit heavy. But then you have Av on the other side, who clearly just has more material on paper, and I feel like while both were tailored, I feel like Av was extremely tailored towards Tay-Rock. One of the more tailored Av performances you're going to see. So me personally, how I called it on my first watch, I had Av edging the first round. I had Tay-Rock taking the second clear and Av taking the third clear. Like I said, pending on a rewatch, thought it was really close in the first. It's tough saying the second's close, and I gave it to Rock clear, but it's the fact that Av rapped twice as long. And I have to see, you know, in the building, it's easy to kind of lose the attention, wrap yourself out of a round, like I said. But when you talk about guys that rate like this and are at this level, and particularly both of their first 2 rounds were fucking fire, it's always going to be worth the rewatch. But on first call, I will say I did have Av 2-1 in the main event, and definitely held it down and did his job. Mostly everyone that was on like the newer class side of their matchups really held it down on SM13. But we got to talk about first some of the guys that didn't hold it down. So without further ado, let's get into the top 3 most disappointing performers of Summer Madness. So at number 3, first person to mention, even though they weren't just flat out bad in my opinion, but have to mention Shotgun Suge. Him and Fonz, as I talked about, similar, I said him and Fonz and Rock and Av were going to be the 2 most competitive, self-motivating battles that should be complete 50-50 calls. And while I think Rock and Av kind of lived up, you know what I'm saying, to that name, I think some of the votes, really just watching the battle in general, one of the best battles, not my battle of the night pick, we'll talk about that in a bit, one of the best battles of the night. I expected that from Fonz and Suge, and I can't really say that Suge held up his end of the bargain. From really the very beginning of his first round, he was stumbling, and he doesn't really choke anywhere in this battle, comes very close to it a couple times, but clearly fumbling over words. His first is just beatable too. I mean, the material is nothing that crazy. I've never been mad at like the Fines and Fonz flips. I've never, but he did a lot. Like, he did a lot of finds and Fonz flips. And for a guy that, in my opinion, has been more in his winning ways in the last about year and a half, well, not as much as 2023, but 2022 really showed me his pen improved, winning against, variety of talent. And I feel like you see Suge reverting back to a little bit of the things that kind of got him in a slump, originally a couple of years before his run, right? The 2020s, the 2021s, and even going back to the 2016, even 2019s, where you're seeing a little bit more on the clear loss side for him. I just feel like you see that here, the stumbling in the first. We'll talk about Fonz a little bit later in this video, but clearly lost the first. His second is great. There was a great Suge round, which is why he's at 3, not anywhere higher on the list, where he did generally fight back. But then even when you get back to the third, after he was kind of matched in that second round, energy and material-wise, you get to the third, and once again, it looks more like his first. He did end it with, like, the slam dunk, which was dope, but little bit that it reminds me how I used to talk about Suge. We hit the pocket tap, he had the dunk, but the material kind of lacked in this one. And then also taking a clear loss in a grudge match isn't great for the stock, and for me, why you have to put him on the top 3 most disappointing, considering how competitive I viewed the battle going in. And then from there, we can get to the runner-up, and this is the rare one where we're actually going to have a whole battle taking the runner-up spot. We're going to have 2 people sharing this dishonor, and that is John Dodon and T-Top for the battle they had. Now, talked about it first of all. I did do my a review, recap of the event afterwards with Jay Black. Yeah, I think y'all heard of him, right? So if you guys would like to, I get a little bit more of my thoughts, a little bit more in detail on that video of how I felt about the battle and even the lead up. But for those that, have been watching me see my predictions of when the card even dropped, I always thought this matchup was a little I thought, it's a rematch that no one really asked for. I know they were like, it's been 10 years, they have so much to say to each other, but there's never been a demand for this. Not saying that, listen, John and T-Top are legendary talent, so I don't want to, put it down, no one wants to see them. But this particular matchup, no, the people had not asked for it to that extent. On top of that, John has not really been looking like the best version of John recently, and it definitely didn't look like this in the battle until the third round. And then T-Top in Houston is T-Top in Houston. It's very publicized that T-Top is a smooth 0-3 in Houston. Clear, you know what I'm saying? And 2 of them being body bags on large URL stages. So you go into the battle, you can kind of see where it can go wrong, and things did go wrong. I thought T-Top, funny enough, it's probably T-Top's best performance at Houston. Not a very good one, you know what I'm saying, but definitely his best. Thought his first was pretty good. Thought it went downhill from him for him there. And on the flip side, did not like John's first and second. A lot of outdated, weird pacing. I know people were saying he was sleeping, but it wasn't the most complex bars, man. I just feel like it was some low-level material, especially for a legend of that nature. Has a very good third, to save face a little bit, but overall, this one was not good, that good, guys. That definitely, in my opinion, probably the worst battle of the night. Just in terms of the energy, and there's another battle that took the energy out of the building that we're going to talk about here in 2 seconds, but this one, especially by the time we get to the 5th battle, really it killed. I saw people on cam disliked it. Pretty much everyone in the building, for the most part, was really unhappy with it. And it's just one of those where, even though it's been 10 years and they had this a rematch, there really wasn't that much to talk about. And I think you see the drama that was happening about the both of them, hitting up each other's BMs and all the silliness and screenshots and stuff like that. And who knows, was it a stunt for promo? Was it for real? They both rapped about it in the battle. We didn't care. I don't know how else to say it. It just wasn't very riveting material. It's not something that we were excited to listen to. And then on top of that, like I said, neither of them are known for really their writing prowess for the most part. But you get John's third is good, and T-Top's first is pretty decent. But John's first, not good. T-Top and John's second is the tombstone of the battle. That's when it started getting very dark. And then T-Top's third is his worst round of the battle. So by the time you even get to John's round, which is pretty good, you pretty much lost focus. I was surprised to see it 50-50. I thought T-Top won the first 2 clear for what it's worth. You know what I'm saying? It's not the prettiest win, but I did have him 2-1 in the first and second. I saw some people had John, but overall, a battle that had question marks when it got booked, in my opinion. In a battle that there was a reason those question marks were there, and they turned into red exclamation points by the time the battle went down. But from there, we can get to the number 1 most disappointing performer of the night. And without a shadow of a doubt, this is Disaster. And I know that there was already little expectations going in. Most of us called it extremely clear for Sick. Damn near all of us called it extremely clear for Sick. And the Disaster's first round is just, it's bad. It's very bad. And, he's trying to get into like a joke bag, and he'll like deliver something that's supposed to be a haymaker, but then it's a joke. Like, it's a very aggressively delivered joke, and that kind of takes that. If you're going to take the comedy route, take it. You know what I'm saying? But he was like playing the middle without really doing either. The second was actually an improvement. Obviously people were chanting 30, you know what I'm saying, all up and down the building. We thought that he ran out on the battle because he got booed. He's booed like 8 bars in his first, you know what I'm saying? And on the flip side, Sick, who won't be on the most impressive performers, but Sick handled business in the first. Very, very good round from him. The put Disaster underground with a 7.62. I love that bar. So very clear 1-0. Sick second is a dip. 6 second is definitely a dip, and Disasters is like a up. He had the creatine bar, he had the impression. It's not the craziest round, but live I was thinking I did edge Disaster watching it live. I was kind of really unimpressed with 6 second, and Diz kind of did something in a round that was like really up for grabs. So I thought it was like, you could really argue Sick 2-0, you know what I'm saying? But Disaster did enough to make it interesting, and then obviously we get into the third. And we know what he did. We know what he did. He's telling his life story. You know what I'm saying? A little bit strange the way he went about it too, slow and making the crowd slow down and be like, I'm going to piss y'all off. And then obviously dropped the N-word, you know what I'm saying, using slurs and kind of embellished in it. And I think that's the part where I understand he was telling a story. He wasn't calling anyone anything. But what are we doing, man? We're at a URL event. We're a crowd that's predominantly black people in a black culture. You know what I'm saying? It's like he was doing it just to say he could do it. Like, after all these years of him telling people telling him, oh, say it in front of you. I'm saying, say it on URL, say it here. It's like he wanted to just get away with it and embellishing in it the way he did. I get he's trying to tell a life story, but that he did more than that, and he showed that in his actions, and then like immediately doubled down on it, I think, on Twitter 2 seconds later. So just not more than bizarre, just a shitty ending. The round was shitty. The round just wasn't good. So Sick 2-1, probably 3-0, and Disaster did Disaster things. But with the ridiculousness out of the way, we can get into the top 3 most impressive performers, which for me is a great one to talk about. A couple guys I want to shout out to that didn't make the list, but I thought had good showings. Twork, obviously, that I mentioned earlier. Amin, who I feel like was one half of Battle of the Night, which we'll probably get to like really towards the end here. But love, you know what I'm saying? Love what Ace did. Thought he seized the moment with most of those, like I said, most of the new era guys, especially U-on-1, really did seize the moment. So Twork, Sick, and Ace for me are 3 guys that you got to mention, that even if they're not the top performances of the night, they handle business. They all, in my opinion, rose their stock. Impressive performances, at a variety of levels at that, right? But just someone that I wanted to mention before we get into the top 3, and at number 3 for the most impressive performances, have to go with Fonz. Like I talked about with Suge, I said he lost the first and the second, and he lost the first and the third clear, second close, and the reason he did is because Fonz was on one, man. In the first round, really punches down Suge, a little bit of a slow burn, but starts hitting haymakers towards the end of the first. Reminded me a lot of like his first versus Danny Myers on SM last year, where he just kind of outpaced him, lands a couple haymakers at the end to like solidify it. And then when Suge turned up in the second, that was big. That was big for me to see how Fonz would react, because if he folds, you know what I'm saying, maybe now, okay, Suge's competitive, you go downhill. Now the third, all momentum on Suge's side, but Fonz matched Suge's energy in the second. I personally edge Suge the second, but it's an extremely debatable round. You could definitely edge Fonz the second. And then really what to talk about with Fonz is the third round, the football scheme, like a 20-25 reference football scheme. Pretty concise, only took up half the round, wasn't even like a full round scheme. And by the time he hit let's get one thing straight, his I formation, out of all the haymakers of the night, I think that one physically shook the building the most. Like, I think that the crowd, in terms of us moving around, grabbing each other in craziness, I think that was the craziest bar, probably bar of the night from last night, truth be told. Even if you don't feel like it was on a technical level, just the whole lead up, that whole concept. And in my opinion, it was a top tier moment. And I feel comfortable saying that Fonz is a top tier right now, personally. I think he's now got the big stage moment. The UM1 win has always been big for him. Even though he's had some mixed results versus a vet that's starting going in the right direction, I think him and Rum Nitty's a great battle. There's a reason it's dropped on YouTube, but I think it's a debatable battle as well. Beating O-Red, for what it's worth, it's more of a paper win, you know what I'm saying? But that's how you build your case as a top tier. A lot of these top tiers we look at now, we look at some of the wins that people will quote, how they became top tier. They're not the craziest on paper, but it's about building those accolades, building the resume, building those top wins that people can refer to you for. And for me, Fonz did what he had to do to welcome himself to club top tier. From there, we'll get into number 2. The other half of battle of the night, and that is Rum Nitty. Really love Rum Nitty's performance. Loved Rum and Ace overall. Opening energy too leads to a battle being great, in my opinion. Pretty clearly the battle of the night. And Nitty was just on one, man, from first to third. I held the apps down so long I could have uninstalled it. I'll give your mama a shoulder to cry on. That'll be his last bump, Len Bias. I mean, he's the quote machine, and he produced more quotes last night, man. What he's become, like I said, I've been saying it all the time, always known as a pure puncher, but now he really is an all-around pen, and he shows that throughout the battle. And Ace is great in this battle. You know what I'm saying? I think the first is really debatable. The second, I gave clear to Rum Nitty. And the third, I did give to Ace. You know what I'm saying? But I understand people giving it to Nitty for Ace not being direct. I think when a round is indirect, if it's still that good, it was a pretty special moment from Ace, I thought, in the third. You can give it to him. But I'm seeing a lot of people Nitty 2-1 or 3-0. I personally had Nitty in the first 2 rounds. And just an incredible performance. And obviously, a little bit of talk there with Lux coming up on stage, possibly wanting to battle Rum Nitty. A battle I would be very interested in. That best pen all time kind of title versus who I think is probably the current best pen in battle rap. And that just makes for that makes for good stuff when the best face the best. And we'll see what it is. You know, Lux got up there and he's like, maybe, possibly, I could somewhat battle Nitty. And we know how Lux is. You know what I'm saying? So I have to see it to believe it. But I love that we're kind of going in that direction. I mean, there's a lot of people that will tell you Nitty is the best in the world right now, and that's who we want getting God tier shots, the people that are truly earning it. We want the best of our game representing us in the big time matchups versus older era battlers and battlers who kind of built this. So. Good night for him, man. Great performance. First real great real SM win, in my opinion. And overall, you know what I'm saying? Rum Nitty's on top of the world right now. We'll be talking about him versus Jazz the Rapper a week from now. Going to have predictions for all those events coming out, you know what I'm saying, right after this week. But wanted to shout him out as the number 2 performer of the night. And at number 1, I had Jerry West, man. And not even against a bad DNA. In a battle that we all had DNA beating Jerry clear, you know what I'm saying? I was up here talking about a 90-10. I mean, if you look at all this, a lot of us were very confident, and Jerry West flipped the script and caught a very clear 30 on a pretty decent DNA, which is probably a result you wouldn't expect to hear out loud. And especially with the first, it started out a little slow, right? He's like jabbing a little bit, but nothing crazy. But he's still able to pick it up at the end, you know what I'm saying? Win the first clear, has the basketball prop, you know what I'm saying? The sound effects as well. And then his second and his third, he just takes off. And DNA is a good second, but Jerry took off on him. And by the time you get to the third, the Scorpion props, the Kurt Angle, the wrestling bars, the DNA flips. I could go on and on and on. There's so much packed into Jerry's performance, angling, punching, anything that you can name as an element for battle rap, I feel Jerry covered, and he looked so comfortable doing it against one of the most consistent and one of the most comfortable and polished in the game in DNA. For me, I think you can argue that really either Nitty or Ace. I feel like Nitty kind of getting the winning side of the battle for the most part, even though I think it's closer than people are going to credit for. But I think him giving the winning side, there's people that would say that Nitty is number 1. But for me, when it comes to dominance, that's a big part of performance of the night. I feel like Nitty and Ace were clearly battle of the night. When you talk performance tonight, you have to take someone that had 3 so complete rounds that kind of drowned out their opponent. And I don't think anyone did that better than Jerry West last night, especially given the fact that he was supposed to go in there. And just people are like, if he even does good enough and makes it close-ish, Jerry could prove he's here. And I remember I said some more to Fonz. I said, Jerry, welcome to Club Top Tier. I got some pushback. And I remember when I put out a poll before the battles, if Jerry clears DNA, is he top tier? It was 60% yes, 40% no. So it's going to be a split topic. And with him calling out Rock, maybe clips on the table, they had a little mini face-to-face meetup. There's options for him. Maybe he is one away, 2 away, but I feel like now impactful performances, big stage impactful performance, wins on DNA. Danny, you could debate John. I personally haven't beaten John. These are the things that build that case. So overall, really impressed with Jerry and Fonz, in my personal opinion, especially with Fonz, added to top tier status. But that's really something for the people to determine. But just overall, I love to see people seize that moment, man. But that's my top 3 most impressive. My full recap for SM. Trying to give you guys the highs, the lows, and how I felt about it overall. And I would love if you guys let me know down in the comments below what were your biggest takeaways from SM, negative or positive. Run through my results real quick again. Rum Nitty 2-1 over Ace in the first 2 rounds. I had real sick 2-1 if not 3-0 over Disaster, especially in the first and third. I had Fonz 2-1 over Shotgun Showed Possible 3-0. First and third clear, second debatable. I had Jerry West clearly 30ing DNA. I believe he got all 3 rounds clear. The second is close-ish, but not close enough to debate. I had T-Top 2-1 over John, first and second. I'm not rewatching that battle. I had Twork, gentleman's-ish 30. I had him first and third, very clear, edge in the second. And then I had Av, first and third, first edge, third clear over Rock. Probably the most debatable battle of the night, in my opinion. Maybe the only debatable battle of the night when you really break it all down. But as I said, you know what I'm saying, a little bit of a longer one here. Have a lot to cover when you talk about a 7-battle mega event like that. But expect... Executive Suite will be coming out this week, so shout out to, look in the spaces, man. Jay Black hosted our Champion Gold Executive Suite spaces. A lot of good dialogue going there. We'll be breaking down all of SM. Probably predict some Max Out and Riot, which will be my next videos out. It will be a Max Out prediction. It will be a Riot prediction. So for those that have been asking, I want to give everybody their own time, like really to focus on the event. That's why I like to do it on the week lead up, so like all the focus is on it. And as I said before, guys, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of SM13. Overall, I'd give the event 7 out of 10, right on the dot, just like the last USM. Nothing that crazy. A lot of lopsided battles, but good performances. So not crazy replay value, but not necessarily bad footage either. But it's been J Small Reviews again, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to catch you on the next one, man. Peace.